my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, and right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF here in Detroit. Welcome to the African History Network show. It's Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, and we are live. All right, so on today's show, we'll talk about day number 3 in the McMichael Bryan trial, McMichael Bryan murder trial, the trial of the 3 white men who are on trial for killing Ahmaud Arbery. So there was some very interesting developments that took place in trial today. One of them has to do with the fact that we found out that Greg McMichael, the father, we found out that that statements that he gave to the police who arrived on the scene were different than statements that he gave the next day when he went to police headquarters to give statements. There was a difference. There were differences in statements that he gave, but also more evidence came out today that Ahmaud Arbery had not stolen anything, and they did not have any evidence that he stole anything. Okay, so more evidence came out dealing with that in today's trial as well. So we're going to talk some about day 3, day 3's testimony, and then we'll continue talking about the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Biden's infrastructure bill. We talked about it on yesterday's show. We know it passed late Friday night, Friday, November 5th. It passed late Friday night. It's going to be signed into law in the next few days or so. And we were dealing with what's in the bill, but also how it impacts the African-American community. Now, there was a yesterday at the two important things. One, Mark Morial, president of the National Urban League, was on the Black News Channel yesterday on Monday, November 8th, breaking down how the infrastructure bill positively impacts the African American community. And he talked about the Justice 40 initiative that aims to deliver 40% of the overall benefits of federal investments in climate and sustainable transportation to disadvantaged communities. But also, the infrastructure bill also deals with addressing historic discrimination, historic racism when it comes to infrastructure and the building of highways and how they ran through African-American communities. Now, we've talked about this a lot on this show. Okay, we've talked about that a lot on this show. There was Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg was at the White House Daily Briefing on Monday, and he dealt with this, and he dealt with historic discrimination, historic racism when it comes to infrastructure and the building of highways. I'm going to share that excerpt with you. We're going to talk about that some because he's getting backlash from conservative media that is trying to discredit what he's saying. He told the truth. We dealt with that before. We talked about that before. He told the truth, but you have a lot of people that don't want to deal with that history. So how do you correct the history if you don't want to deal with it and don't want to acknowledge that it happened? How do you correct the history if you don't want to deal with it and don't want to acknowledge that it happened? So we'll discuss that also. There's he's getting backlash from Fox News, from idiotic Ted Cruz. He's getting backlash from a number of different sources. There was a good article from MSNBC that talks about the highway history that Republicans really ought to know. The highway history that Republicans really ought to know. Now, this is something that should be taught in schools. Okay, this is something that should be taught when we teach American history in schools. We also have to deal with how these policies discriminated against African Americans, and how racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race that comes out of the ideology of European white supremacy. Okay, the highway history that Republicans really ought to know. Now, one of the things that Secretary Buttigieg talked about, and you know, we've dealt with there was the article from NBC News called Bulldozed and Dissected, which goes deep into this history of how the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts in 1952 and 1956 drove 41,000 miles of interstate highway all across the country, and it ran through African American communities. But if we look quickly here, and we're coming up on a break, we look quickly here at this piece from MSNBC. It's called the Highway History That Republicans Really Ought to Know. And one of the things that this article talks about is it quotes Secretary Buttigieg from the White House Daily Briefing on Monday, November 8th. And he said, quote, and I want to blow this up. I want people to watch it. I want people to see this. He said, quote, "I'm still surprised that some people were surprised when I pointed to the fact that if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and black neighborhood, if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a black and a white and black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been in New York, was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices." Okay. Now he went on to say, "I don't think we have anything to lose by confronting that simple reality, and I think we have everything to gain by acknowledging it and then dealing with it." Okay. Now the people that have something to lose are the people who benefit from the maldistribution of wealth, power, resources in the first place, and don't want people to understand how all this happened. Okay. And don't want to give it up and turn it loose, like Invoke said. One of them is spineless Ted Cruz. Spineless Senator Ted Cruz pried himself away from Big Bird complaints because Big Bird took the COVID-19 vaccine. Big Bird complaints to mock Buttigieg's assessment. Punk ass Ted Cruz said, quote, "The roads are racist," end quote. The Texan wrote sarcastically on Twitter. He said, "We must get rid of roads." No, we must get rid of ignorant senators like yourself, Ted Cruz. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation and Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Okay, everybody, share this broadcast here on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. How's everybody doing? Stand by. Okay, we have Alvin, Sharon. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by, everybody. Okay, we have Alvin, Sharon. Stand by. We got Rico, Cooper, Shelley. All right, if you like type of information, you can also support the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. PayPal.me/the AHN show. And you can also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Stand by.
Hotel and African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism means. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. We have it all on 910 AM Superstation.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation and Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. All right, now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. All right, I want to jump into day 3 here, dealing with the McMichael Bryan trial of the 3 white men that are on trial for killing Ahmaud Arbery. Okay, so first of all, I want to look at this piece here from ABC News. We're going to go to clip 1 here in just a second, Shakita. We're going to clip 1 from the Black News Channel. ABC News has a good piece here. Testimony: Ahmaud Arbery slaying. Defendant changed his story. Defendant changed his story. And this deals with Greg McMichael. This deals with Greg McMichael, the father. And let's pull this up. And there's a discrepancy in what he told police who arrived on the scene the day of February 23rd, 2020, when Ahmaud Arbery was killed, and what he said the next day when he went to the police station. Okay, the Glenn County police station, the police station headquarters. Let's look at this here. All right. Just a second here. Okay, let me close some of this out. All right. So the man who initiated the case that ended up in Ahmaud Arbery's death quickly changed his story about why he suspected Ahmaud Arbery running in his neighborhood was a criminal. Why he suspected that Ahmaud Arbery, 25 years old, African-American male, running through Greg McMichael's neighborhood, why he suspected that Ahmaud Arbery was a criminal. 2 police officers testified on Tuesday in court, November 9th. Now, Glenn County police officer Jeff Brandberry told a jury that Greg McMichael, one of 3 white men on trial for murder in this case, at first told him that Ahmaud Arbery had been recorded by security cameras, quote, breaking in all these houses out here, end quote. Breaking in all these houses out here, end quote. This is what Glenn County Police Officer Jeff Brandberry testified to today that Greg McMichael told him when Officer Brandberry arrived on the scene, February 23rd, 2020. Quote, well, he makes frequent trips to the neighborhood and gets caught on video cameras every third or fourth night breaking into places, and no one's been able to catch him. Breaking into places. Okay, this is very important. This is what he told the officer on the scene. Greg McMichael, the father, told Officer Brandberry, who read in open court from a transcript of the conversation recorded by his body camera. Okay, the body camera video of the officers on the scene, their conversations with the McMichaels and William Roddy Bryan are critical in this case. I would say this probably the second most important thing behind the video that William Bryan shot himself of them chasing Ahmaud and Ahmaud being killed. Now, the officer, Officer Brandberry, said he spoke to Michael at the scene of the shooting with Ahmaud Arbery's body lying under a sheet in the road nearby as police first responded on February 23rd. Now, Greg McMichael's account shifted when he spoke with a Glenn County detective at police headquarters late the same day. Okay, late the same day. February 23rd, also late the same day. Greg McMichael's account shifted when he spoke with a Glenn County detective at police headquarters late the same day. Whereas he first blamed this Ahmaud Arbery for break-ins at multiple houses, Greg McMichael told Detective Parker Marcy, who also testified today, that Ahmaud Arbery had targeted a single home, one that was still under construction with no doors or windows. With no doors or windows. This is the house in the Satilla Shores subdivision outside of the port city of Brunswick, Georgia. That house has had no doors or windows for over a year. If you go back to opening statements on Friday, November 5th, the defense said that Ahmaud Arbery was seen in the house plundering around. And they said he broke into the house. There were no doors and no windows. So how are you going to break into the house? He just walked in just like everybody else that's recorded on video, walking in and looking around. So McMichael's changed his story. Greg McMichael, the father, changed his story from what he told officers initially on the scene, that quote, and they read from the transcript of the body camera footage. Okay. He said, at first he told Officer Jeff Brandberry that Ahmaud Arbery had been recorded by security cameras breaking in all these houses out here, end quote. But then when he gets to the police station, okay, he tells Detective Parker Marcy that Ahmaud Arbery had targeted a single home, one that was still under construction, and one that had no doors and no windows. Now, Detective Parker Marcy testified that Gregory McMichael told him he had seen, quote, 2 or 3 videos, end quote, that showed, quote, this guy breaking into or wandering around into this house, end quote. Which video showed him breaking into a house? Which video was that? Which house was it? Where? Greg McMichael, his adult son Travis McMichael, and neighbor William Roddy Bryan are charged with murder and other crimes in the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Glenn County police never arrested them. Instead, charges came more than 2 months 2 months later, when cell phone video of the shooting leaked online and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation took over the case. Now, let's see here. I'm going to go. Okay, prosecutors say the men had no legal reason to pursue Ahmaud Arbery with guns, as there's no evidence Arbery committed any crimes in the Satilla Shore subdivision outside the port city of Brunswick, Georgia. Now, prosecutor Lisa Dunikowski, lead prosecutor, showed the jury security camera video from inside the house under construction, recorded just before the deadly chase. Ahmaud Arbery can be seen wandering through the open framed interior, but doesn't seem to touch anything. He ran after a neighbor outside called the police. Prosecutor Dunikowski said, "Do you see him take anything or steal anything from the location?" she asked Detective Parker Marcy. Detective Parker Marcy responded, "No, ma'am." Now, defense attorneys say the defendants had reason to suspect Ahmaud Arbery was a burglar. Franklin Hogg, Greg Michael's attorney, noted that in the same interview in which his client told the detective that Ahmaud Arbery entering the house, about Ahmaud Arbery entering the house under construction, he also said there had been, quote, numerous autos and break-ins, end quote, elsewhere in the neighborhood. But what evidence do you have that it was him? What evidence do you have that it was him? Did you suspect any of the numerous people that were on camera going into the house on Satilla Shores and looking around? Did you suspect any of them? Did you chase any of them down? Quote, logic tells you this guy may be the one that's doing it, Greg McMichael said, according to the transcript. Okay, now Greg McMichael said the chase began when he saw Ahmaud Arbery, quote unquote, hauling ass as past his home on Sunday afternoon, saying he recognized Ahmaud Arbery from security camera videos shown to him by a neighbor who wasn't charged in the case. He ran inside and grabbed his .357 Magnum handgun. I would like to know, okay, which direction was he running to? Was he running towards you? And he was running fast. He was hauling ass. He was running so fast, but you could still see his face clearly. And you can see that's the same guy that you saw in black and white security camera footage. That's what you're trying to tell us. Okay. He was running so fast, but you recognized him in the glimpse of an eye and said, that's the same guy I saw in black and white security camera footage. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Stand by, everybody. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 3 minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media platforms. All right. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. Turn on notifications so you know when we go live. Back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by, everybody. All right. Who still needs to register for the online courses I teach on Saturdays and Sundays? Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. We do this on Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then also from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We do this on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the classes there. Stand by. Back from break in 1 minute.
The Superstation, Detroit's only African American talk radio.
Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Imhotep. It is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. So right before the break, we're dealing with day 3 in the McMichael Bryan murder trial. They're on trial for killing Ahmaud Arbery. And we see that Greg McMichael, the father, changed his statements from what he told police that arrived on the scene February 23rd, 2020. He changed his statements to what there was a discrepancy in what he told the police on the scene, what he told Detective Marcy Parker of the Glenn County Police Department when he gave statements later that day at police headquarters. Now I want to go back to this here, and we're going to go to the clip from the Black News Channel here in just a minute. Okay, so we have Greg McMichael here, and he said that he suspected Ahmaud Arbery may have stolen. Also, okay, very important. Travis McMichael, the son, armed himself with a shotgun before they went after Ahmaud Arbery in a pickup truck. The father grabs his .357 Magnum, and the son grabs a shotgun. The son had a handgun that was stolen some weeks prior, and they thought that Ahmaud may have been the one that stole the. Now, William Bryan joined the chase in his own pickup truck and recorded the video. Okay. Defense attorneys say Travis McMichael opened fire in self-defense. Officer Brandberry testified that Greg McMichael told him at the scene. Officer Brandberry testified that Greg McMichael told him at the scene, quote, "He attacked my son. He came at him. He tried to get the damn shotgun away," end quote. All right. Now, Detective Parker Marcy of the Glenn County Police testified that Greg McMichael said he armed himself because he suspected Ahmaud Arbery had stolen a handgun from his son's truck several weeks earlier. Greg McMichael, the father, former police officer, said he armed himself because he suspected Ahmaud Arbery had stolen a handgun from his son's Travis McMichael's truck several weeks earlier. though Greg McMichael acknowledged he had no proof that Ahmaud Arbery stole Travis McMichael's handgun, from his truck several weeks earlier. So what made you think he was the one that stole the gun? Several weeks earlier. What made you think he was the one who stole the gun? Detective Parker Marcy.
This is the dimension of imagination.
Detective Parker Marcy said he asked whether the videos of Ahmaud Arbery inside the home under construction showed him picking up anything
Georgia men facing murder
or taking
charges
anything
in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery.
Greg
was
McMichael
unarmed and
answered,
shot to death while
you
out
know,
jogging.
not that I
the first
recall.
officer on the scene testifying
So
about what he
once
says
again,
the defendant told him when he arrived. Steve
what
Osasani is
evidence
covering
are
the
you
case for us
citing that he
this morning.
stole
Good morning,
anything,
Steve.
took anything, did anything
Good morning,
wrong?
Michael. Through police body camera videos, prosecutors are describing a hunt.
And
that
the
they
other
say
thing is,
happened because the
when
victim was black.
when the police arrived on the scene, as we talked about yesterday, they didn't say they were trying to effectuate a citizen's arrest.
And more police body camera from the day that
Now,
25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was
says,
killed on this South Georgia street.
so,
Many
you
of the
know,
images
not
we
that I
can't show
recall
here.
Greg McMichael
A former
answered,
police officer
according
whose
to the
camera was
interview
recording was the
transcript
first on the
that
scene
the detective,
and told jurors that the three white men accused of murder
Marcy
were comforting each other after the shooting.
Greg McMichael
in court.
said he had no choice.
Travis
Quote,
McMichael is the one who fired the fatal shots, and you hear his father, a former police officer who was also armed, telling his son that the shooting was justified.
Roddy has it on film.
William
Or if
Roddy
he
Bryant,
did,
the neighbor
it was
who
early
recorded
in
the
the
cell phone
process.
video now seen around the
But he
world,
keeps
is
going
also
back
charged
over and
with
over
murder. And
again
on the
to
witness
this damn
stand, the
house.
responding
End quote.
officer read aloud what this third defendant
this is
told
Greg
him at the
McMichael
scene.
admitting
All three men have pled not
he doesn't
guilty.
think that
After going back and
Ahmaud Arbery stole anything
the
out there
transcribed body camera
out of the house.
It appeared to be approximately 5 times.
If he did, it was early in the process, but still
So
he has
5
no
times
evidence
he said
that he
that he
did anything
blocked
wrong
him
or
out.
stole anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Even though he was a witness for the prosecution, Arbery's
right,
mother
I
was
wanna go
upset
to,
with this former police officer,
I want to go to this
saying he
clip
could have
here.
done
This is
more
from
to help her.
the Black News Channel. This is from the Black News Channel, from Yodit Tawald, making the case, okay? And this is from Tuesday, November 9th. She's talking with veteran prosecutor Paul Henderson about day 3 of the trial. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
Day 3 of testimony wrapped in the murder trial of Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Bryan, 3 white men charged with killing Ahmaud Arbery. So far, we've heard from several current and former Glynn County police officers who were among the first to arrive at the scene of the shooting. Today, attorneys focused on what Gregory McMichael had to say moments after the shooting. DNC's Dre Clark is outside the courthouse in Brunswick, Georgia, with the latest.
Prosecutors say Ahmaud Arbery was killed because of 3 white men believing that a young black man running through their neighborhood must have been running because he committed a crime. And today in court, we learned those 3 men had never seen Ahmaud Arbery steal anything. Ahmaud Arbery was casually jogging on a sunny afternoon until he crossed paths with Gregory McMichael. McMichael said he recognized Arbery as a neighborhood burglary suspect. So he and his son Travis grabbed their guns, hopped inside a pickup truck, and chased Arbery. Detective Parker Marcy interviewed McMichael. He was asked to read from his notes.
I'm quoting him. He says, well, I'm thinking he's either done something to somebody's chasing him, or, I thought, well, maybe somebody drove up and found him in their house.
McMichael said Arbery had been seen on security video multiple times walking around the neighborhood house under construction. But McMichael told Marcy the guy seen on video had never stolen anything from inside the house. Still, McMichael believed Arbery might be armed and dangerous, and he was going to make a citizen's arrest.
Did he indicate at this time what he thought the guy should be arrested for?
No, ma'am.
Didn't say burglary?
No, ma'am.
Didn't say criminal offense burglary?
No, ma'am.
Didn't say trespassing?
No, ma'am.
McMichael said he yelled at Arbery to stop, but he kept running. The McMichaels were in one truck, and their neighbor, William Bryan, was in his vehicle chasing Arbery and recording it. They didn't stop until they had Arbery cornered.
Again, Detective Marcy reading from his report.
The guy was cornered. He was cornered like a rat.
Cell phone video shows Arbery trying to desperately get away, but Travis McMichael shoots him with a 12-gauge shotgun. As Arbery was on the ground dying, Gregor McMichael said he moved one of Arbery's arms to make sure he didn't have a gun. Jeff Brandenberry was one of the first officers on the scene. He recalled what McMichael told him about the shooting.
To be perfectly honest with you, if I could have got a shot at the guy, I'd have shot him myself because he was that violently, and then we were interrupted again.
Prosecutors say Ahmaud Arbery wasn't a wanted man. He never stole anything. He was a victim, they say, of 3 overzealous white men who assumed a black man running must be a criminal. Inside the courtroom today, Judge Timothy Walmsley admonished one of the defense attorneys, Jason Sheffield, saying to Sheffield, you need to reconsider how you're conducting yourself in this courtroom. He said to Sheffield, I don't care if you like me or not, or my decisions, but you will respect the court. Judge Walmsley was so frustrated, he had to call for a recess. Meanwhile, Reverend Al Sharpton will be here in Brunswick, Georgia tomorrow for a prayer vigil. He'll be meeting with Ahmaud Arbery's family, and then they will pray together on the courthouse steps. In Brunswick, Georgia, I'm Joy Clark for Making the Case.
Now it's time to bring in my legal panel of experts to weigh in on the evidence the prosecution presented today. From San Francisco, veteran prosecutor and BNC's legal contributor Paul Henderson, and in Houston, criminal defense attorney Adante Pointer. Glad to have you both. Let's get started with the first prosecution witness called to the stand this morning. Take a listen to the prosecution's direct examination of Officer Jeff Brandenberry, one of the officers who initially interviewed Gregory McMichael at the scene.
Did Gregory McMichael ever indicate to you at that time that he thought Ahmaud Arbery, the guy, had committed a crime that day?
No.
So he didn't say the guy committed the crime of this?
No.
And when he said to you that numerous occasions the guy has broken into a house over there that got him on video, what house was Gregory McMichael talking about?
The house down the road that was under construction.
Okay, so he's not talking about his home at 236 Hill Drive.
No.
All right. While speaking with you, did Gregory McMichael ever use the word burglary?
No.
Did he ever use the word trespass?
No.
Did he ever tell you while you're talking to him that he was attempting to make a citizen's arrest?
No.
All right, we're coming up on the break. We'll continue this on the other side of the break, and then we'll also talk about the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that just passed, Biden's infrastructure bill, and how it will help the African-American community. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. Back from break in 4 minutes. Back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. All right, Fly Girl, Jason, Tawand. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show. Stand by. So we're 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. Breaking 2 minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM the Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, November 9th, 2021, and we are live. So right before the break, we were dealing with day 3. Right before the break, we were dealing with day 3 of the McMichael Bryan murder trial in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. And we were listening. I was sharing a clip from Making the Case with Yodit Tewolde. There was some audio distortion while I was talking towards the end there. So just very quickly here, if you go back to the piece from ABC News, I was saying that Greg McMichael, the father, said he armed himself because he suspected Ahmaud Arbery had stolen a handgun from his son's truck several weeks earlier. Travis McMichael, his son, though he acknowledged he had no proof that Ahmaud Arbery was the one who stole the gun weeks earlier. Okay. And we were sharing that clip. So their defense dealing with citizens' arrest, and they suspected Ahmaud of theft, breaking and entering, breaking into a house is under construction that had no doors and no windows, and they said he broke in. It has no doors and no windows. He walked in like everybody else walked in. So the defense is really falling apart. Okay, so we run out of time here. We're going to go to clip 2, Shakita. So I want to deal with, we'll talk some more about the infrastructure bill, $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Now, Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, was at the White House daily briefing on Monday, and he talked about the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and addressing racism and how the African American community has been harmed by interstate highways and how it's been harmed by infrastructure in the past, especially highways, and how the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill is going to address systemic racism when it comes to infrastructure. And April Ryan of the GRIO asked him a question. Let's go to this clip. Let's go to clip 2, Shakita.
Secretary Mayor, could you give us the breakdown of the implementation of Justice 40 with the infrastructure package that's now passed and signed into law? And also, can you give us the construct of how you will deconstruct the racism that was built into the roadways that you talked to Rio earlier when you broke that information? Can you talk to us about how that could be deconstructed?
For sure, yeah. So the principle of Justice 40 is that at least 40% of the Queen investments in this bill will go to benefit the communities that are overburdened and underserved. So part one of that is defining those investments that are eligible, and that's a lot of it. And we're working to map out kind of program by program, mode by mode, what would qualify. For example, if we're buying Queen buses, right? How do we make sure in terms of where those buses go? But also looking at the business opportunity, the jobs that are going to be created, the businesses that will have a chance to compete for the business opportunities it creates. That, too, I think is a very important element of equity here that's in the spirit of Justice 40. And again, we have a lot of guidance and oversight from the White House since that's an administration-wide initiative. But we know that we've got to build our own internal kind of ways of aligning and defining that inside the administration. As to where we target those dollars, I'm still surprised that some people were surprised when I pointed to the fact that if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing a white and a black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or it would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by, but that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices. I don't think we have anything to lose by confronting that simple reality, and I think we have everything to gain
by acknowledging it and then dealing with it, which is why the Reconnecting Communities, that $1 billion, is something we want to get to work right away, putting to work.
But that's such a heavy lift. I mean, you have to reconstruct communities that this happened to. As you said, some of these beltways and interface and roadways were built before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act, and were meant to be racist. But how do you go about redefining and replanning these roadways and communities that are already settled in?
So what's interesting is it's going to vary by community, and we have to listen to the community. Sometimes it really is the case that an overpass went in a certain way that is so harmful that it's got to come down or maybe be put underground. Other times, maybe it's not that way. Maybe the really important thing is to connect across it, to add rather than subtract. And that's where we don't want to impose a one-size-fits-all answer from here. But when we were out in Syracuse, for example, looking at I-81, we saw the local vision for how they want to get past those divisions. And those local ideas are going to be taken very seriously as we try to meet the spirit of this law.
Okay. All right. You can pause it right there. Okay. So that was from Monday at the White House press briefing. Okay. You can pause the clip right there. That's from Monday at the White House press briefing. Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, talking about the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill and how it would help the African-American community and addressing systemic racism when it comes to infrastructure. If we look at this piece here that we talked about earlier in the show, this is from MSNBC.com, the highway history that Republicans really ought to know. The highway history that Republicans really ought to know. And it has a statement here dealing with systemic racism. And then it goes on to say that, it talks about Senator Ted Cruz. The problem, Senator Ted Cruz had negative comments to say. He said something idiotic in between attacking Big Bird for getting the COVID vaccine. The roads are racist, Senator Ted Cruz tweeted. We must get rid of the roads. No, we need to get rid of idiotic senators like yourself. Now, Pete Buttigieg talked to the Washington Post and explained on Monday, November 8th. He said, quote, the secretary was referring to a story from Robert Caro's The Power Broker, a book that is generally recognized as one of the premier examples of journalism in modern American history. It centers on Robert Moses, a mid-century New York City official who set out to reshape how the city's residents moved, mostly successfully. In that book, Robert Caro describes one particular goal of Robert Moses: keeping poor Black people from busing to Long Island's Jones Beach. Keeping poor Black people from busing to Long Island's Jones Beach. Okay, now Robert Moses, end quote. Now Robert Moses quite deliberately and for entirely racist reasons created a system to discourage African-American and Puerto Rican kids from visiting Jones Beach, which is what Secretary Buttigieg was talking about. He's being attacked by the right wing for dealing with racism and infrastructure, but there's a deep history of racism and infrastructure. Created a system to discourage Black and Puerto Rican kids from visiting Jones Beach, in part by building parkway bridges so low that buses could not fit below them. What's more, as the Washington Post report added, quote, buses needed permits to enter parks, permits that were often denied to those bringing Black residents to Jones Beach, end quote. Okay, to his credit, Secretary Buttigieg has spent months talking about the problem of racism built into the nation's transportation system that many Republicans don't even want to acknowledge still existed historically or still exists today. And while much of the right has pushed back, reality is on the secretary's side. Read this piece here. We'll talk about this some more tomorrow's show. The highway history that Republicans really know. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We'll keep broadcasting for a few more minutes. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right. Stand by. Okay, now we look quickly here at this article. We'll talk about this some more tomorrow's show. This is Senator Ted Cruz, and I have an article. I looked at articles from Fox News and New York Post, and they're attacking what Secretary Buttigieg said and addressing racism in infrastructure. And there's a deep, rich history of racism in infrastructure. Okay, if we look at this one here, this is from Yahoo News. And this deals with Ted Cruz's remarks. Buttigieg responds to Ted Cruz on racism in highway design. Buttigieg responds to Ted Cruz on racism in highway design. This is from November 9th, 2021. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg told Yahoo News that systemic racism in the design and location of highways in American cities and suburbs continues to adversely affect low-income neighborhoods and communities of color. Responding to criticism from conservatives, including spineless Senator Ted Cruz, who deserted his state when they had the infrastructure, the electrical grid failure. Okay, he deserted his state. Was called at the airport. He's about to go to Cancun, flying Ted Cruz. Then he had to turn back around because he got busted. Responding to criticism from conservatives, including flying Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, regarding comments he made on Monday, Secretary Buttigieg said in a Tuesday interview that racism and segregation in road building are not ancient history. Racism and segregation in road building are not ancient history or a figment of liberals' imagination, as some on the right contend, because they don't want to correct the problem, because they benefit from resources being maldistributed. They benefit from the playing field being tilted in their direction. So they don't want to even acknowledge that the systemic racism like this exists or still exists today. Quote, Secretary Buttigieg said, there are many well-documented examples of this happening from the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s, and 60s. And sometimes we have to be on the lookout for issues that are happening in our time. Sometimes we have to be on the lookout for issues that are happening in our time. He said, but for me, the issue is not in what year did somebody create this problem. The issue is that the problem affecting people today, and the issue is that problem affecting people today in 2021. The issue is that problem affecting people today in 2021. The back and forth with conservatives started Monday afternoon when Secretary Buttigieg said during a White House press briefing, quote, if a highway was built for the purpose of dividing, a white and black neighborhood, or if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or it would have been in New York, was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices. Okay, the tendency to build highways in neighborhoods with lower incomes or higher proportions of people of color, sometimes acting as de facto racial barriers, is well established, and it is one reason that pollution and illnesses such as asthma are more prevalent in those areas like inner cities where African Americans are more likely to live. Okay, this all deals with infrastructure and the construction of the highways running through African American communities. This specific example Pete Buttigieg referred to about underpasses that were too low for buses comes from the parkways in the Long Island suburbs of New York City. The low underpass design was ordered by government official Robert Moses with the specific intent of keeping out buses bringing low-income city residents to Jones Beach, according to the book Power Broker, Robert Caro's legendary biography of Robert Moses. Some conservative pundits and politicians, including former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who's the father of lion-ass Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who was Donald Trump's White House press secretary and was responsible for me cussing at the TV every day when she gave her press secretary conference. And she was lying so much that she stopped giving them every day because she was getting so much backlash from reporters because she was just doing so much lying. Mike Huckabee said, quote, "Is this guy serious? This is what happens when ignorance of facts join with only enthusiasm," Mike Huckabee tweeted. Now, I didn't know Mike Huckabee knew how to use Twitter, but okay. This is what happens when you're ignorant of history. And he's a former governor of Arkansas, and he's this stupid. This is why people like Ted Cruz need to be voted out of office, and people like Mike Huckabee can never get back into office. Elections have consequences. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resource, the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is why people like Ted Cruz have to be voted out of office, and Ted Cruz voted against the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, by the way. He voted against the bill. Mitch McConnell voted for the bill because McConnell knows you need new roads and bridges and all that stuff through raggedy ass Kentucky. He knows this. Okay. And Mitch McConnell voted against the $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill. But about 4 months ago, McConnell was in his home state of Kentucky talking to Kentuckians. And he said that $4 billion was coming to Kentucky because of the $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill. Then he had to admit in the next sentence that he didn't vote for the bill. But he's talking about the benefits of the bill. The only people that voted for the American Rescue Plan were Democrats in the House and the Senate. And they're the one, and Democrats were the ones who wrote the bill. McConnell voted against the bill, but he's telling his constituents money's coming to Kentucky because of the bill and talking about how great, how this is going to help out Kentucky. Senator Ted Cruz, we saw that dumbass, we saw that idiotic comment from Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is attacking Big Bird also because Big Bird got a COVID-19 shot. Big Bird is eternally 6 years old, and Big Bird got a COVID-19 shot. So Ted Cruz is attacking that, even though Ted Cruz got a COVID-19 shot also. Ted Cruz acts like a 6-year-old. But now, at first glance, it appeared that Pete's critics were either ignorant of the relevant history or pretending to be ignorant of the relevant history. However, when it was pointed out to them online that Pete Buttigieg was not imagining a bizarre hypothetical, but telling a true story, some responded that it was irrelevant because the underpasses were built in 92 years ago in 1929. Yeah, but you have stuff that was built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. infrastructure that ran through African American communities and was purposely went through our communities. Wasn't just 1929. This is the denial from a lot of conservatives, okay, and the Negroes that love them. This is the denial because what you also see white supremacy through ventriloquism, as Dr. Michael Eric Dyson says, where you have African American conservatives who would parrot what they would parrot the talking points that the white conservatives have constructed to deny systemic racism exists. After arriving in Glasgow, Scotland on Tuesday for the UN Climate Change Conference, Secretary Buttigieg, interviewed by Yahoo News and asked about that critique, he said, quote, "If people in 2021 are suffering from a discriminatory policy funded by the federal government, then we have a responsibility to fix it. If people in 2021 are suffering from a discriminatory policy funded by the federal government, then we have a responsibility to fix it." And I remain kind of surprised that this is controversial. I don't know who it hurts to acknowledge that harm was done and to propose doing something to fix it, end quote. Now, Buttigieg was also recently attacked by conservatives like Fox News, Tucker Carlson, idiotic Tucker Carlson, for taking 4 weeks of parental leave for care for the twins he and his husband, Chasten Buttigieg, just adopted. Let's see here. Okay, now I want to go to, let's see here. I want to go to this clip. All right, you can read the rest of this here. Let me see, which one is this one here? This statement, part of what we see is. All right, read the rest of this article. Now, there was a clip here. I have to see if I can get this clip to play. This is response. Oh, this is this one right here.
Role that yesterday about the role that large highway projects have played in enforcing de facto racial segregation. Yesterday about the role that large highway projects have played in enforcing de facto racial segregation. And some conservatives, including Senator Ted Cruz, mocked that statement, I guess because they were completely unaware that the thing you were referring to regarding Robert Moses and the parkways on Long Island is in fact true, that they were built too low for buses to go under, to keep low-income people from the inner city from going out to the beaches on Long Island. But one thing that some of them did say in the sort of back and forth that followed, which I thought was an interesting point, and I'd like to get your response, is they said, look, that was 100 years ago. It was 1929. You have to go that far back to come up with these examples of systemic racism that you claim are widespread in our transportation infrastructure, today. And so I was wondering how you would respond to that, to the, and argue to them that it's something that still goes on.
Well, first of all, there are many well-documented examples of this happening from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And sometimes we have to be on the lookout for issues that are happening in our time. But to me, the issue is not in what year did somebody create this problem. The issue is that problem affecting people today in 2021? If it is, if people in 2021 are suffering from a discriminatory policy funded by the federal government, then we have a responsibility as a federal government to fix it. And I remain kind of surprised that this is controversial. I don't know who it hurts to acknowledge that harm was done and to propose that we do something to fix it. And it's especially puzzling to hear these objections from people who voted against massive funding for roads and bridges in the infrastructure bill that just passed.
Every nurse around the globe went through this very specific experience that tied us all together on a deeper level.
That was a response to this idiotic criticism on the
Knowing my
right.
dad is working endless hours
That was a response
help
to this
healthcare
idiotic
workers.
criticism on the right. Okay, so check out that article from Yahoo News. Now, we've talked about there was a big expose by NBC News. I think it was called Bisected and Divided. It dealt with the history of it dealt with a lot of history of the discrimination when it came to the infrastructure and the highways. Divided and bisected, one of them. Let me pull this up here. Bulldoze and bisected, I should say. Bulldoze and bisected. So we talked about this before on the show. And this ties into a lot of history and post-World War II history. Post-World War II history. And the Federal Housing Administration giving 3% down on low-interest loans so white people could get houses built out in the newly formed suburbs, and redlining being used to lock us out of getting those loans and getting those homes. Okay, this is called bulldozed and bisected. Highway construction built a legacy of inequality. Bulldozed and bisected. Highway construction built a legacy of inequality. All right, this is from NBC News. It's a huge article from June 18th, 2021. We talked about it when it came out. During the largest public works program ever attempted in the United States, Black and Latino communities in cities across the country met the blade of the bulldozer and the crush of the wrecking ball, making room for ribbons of new highway, rather through blindness or design. The mid-century American Interstate Highway Program demolished homes and bisected communities. Driven by the promise of prosperity, faster commutes, and jobs. And they ran the expressways from the downtown business district out to the newly formed suburbs. So they could go from the suburbs to the downtown and not have to go through the inner city on the service streets. Okay. They could just go on the expressways, but these expressways are going to go through and wipe out thousands of African-American owned homes and businesses. Quote, everything we needed was in our neighborhood, end quote, said Barbara Layson Keller, 75 years old, a lifelong resident of Trim, a once bustling New Orleans community that Interstate 10 cut through in the 1960s. Quote, the highway really destroyed that. End quote. Now, what has changed decades after Federal Highway Act of 1956 brought 41,000 miles of interstates, 41,000 miles of interstate highways to the country is the recognition of the harm that was done to communities left in the shade of these now aging roadways. From 1957 to 1977. From 1957 to 1977. See, you have conservatives, you have people like Tucker Carlson and others, conservatives, who want to say 1929. Oh, that was back in 1929. No, this goes through. We could look at discrimination in infrastructure from 1957, 1977. The program, the Federal Highway Act of 1956, and there was one in 1952 also, 52 and 56. But from 1957 to 1977, the Federal Aid Highway Act displaced 475,000 households. It displaced 475,000 households and 1 million people, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation. Now, as many of the structures reach obsolescence, the federal government and many states and cities are belatedly recognizing the harm they caused and are working with communities to design alternatives that repair the damage. Okay? And are working with communities to design alternatives that repair the damage. This is what part of the $1.2 trillion infrastructure is going to address. This is what Secretary Buttigieg was talking about. But in many cases, those plans are reopening old wounds and leading to protracted debates that politicians and engineers are struggling to solve. Of more than 50 interstate highways across the country nearing the end of their lifespan, SPAN, NBC News examined 3 urban neighborhoods that show the range of proposals underway to redress the harms caused by the construction of interstates. So they go through, look at Syracuse, New York, New Orleans, and Los Angeles. Okay, so the rest of this. And they talk about back in April 2021, Secretary Buttigieg spoke with thegrio.com and said the highway system was built in ways that embedded racist principles, and the $20 billion in Biden's budget proposal contains funding to stitch some of these neighborhoods back together. All right, so read the rest of this here. Bulldozed and bisected. It's from NBC News. You can read this other article we talked about on yesterday's show. What's in the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package? This is from Washington Post, November 5th, 2021. Okay, so read the rest of this also, and it goes through and it breaks it down here. Public transit, it breaks down the different sections, and then it has an explanation of them, what they are as well. It's a 2,700 page bill. Let's see here. Okay, this interview with Mark Morial, we'll deal with that at tomorrow's show. We're out of time here. We'll deal with that on tomorrow's show. Justice 40 initiative is the initiative that Secretary Buttigieg was talking about. This part of the infrastructure bill that aims to deliver 40% of the overall benefits of federal investments in climate and sustainable transportation to disadvantaged communities. That's part of it. And then there's this part that deals with the racism bill that aims to deliver part of, and this part that deals with putting I think that's this one here, Justice 40 initiative, that deals with putting the communities back together that were bisected by the expressways running through, bisected and disrupted. All right, so you can read that article as well. Read this one here also, here dealing with what's in the infrastructure bill. We talked about this on yesterday's show. All right. Be sure to register for the 10-week online courses I teach on Saturday and Sunday. On Saturdays, it's from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. So we do this 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays. This is a 10-week online course. Each class we go through and analyze approximately a 10-year period of history. We look at history from the Civil War, 1861, 1865, and some events leading up to the Civil War taking place, starting with the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. Then we go through, look at Reconstruction, Jim Crow era. We look at the Great Migration, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. So this is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Then the other class that I teach is Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And we do that one on Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time also. So we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime, even after the 10-week online course is over with. You can still go watch. You still have access to the full class, okay? And this class is on sale. This is regularly $130 on sale, $80. As soon as you register, you can watch the class we just did this past weekend. All right. We have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. And Kwanzaa is coming up, so visit TheAHNShow.com, TheAHNShow.com for all your Kwanzaa accessory needs, Kanaras, Kwanzaa sets. We have the information on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This is from Sister Nubia Wardford, Sister Nubia, the archaeologist, and TheAHNShop.com. Okay, TheAHNShop.com. Early bird special, get $10 off your order before November 28th. Okay, so visit TheAHNShop.com and for all your Kwanzaa needs, Kanaras, mats, flags, mugs, and more. All right, we have to get out of here. Right now, it's correct, wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.